Hello all, welcome back to another lecture in this series of sensor arrays and imaging. And so far we have been discussing everything from perspective of reflection imaging, right? If you think so, what we were discussing is something like we do have an array of transducers or antenna. They will emit the waveforms into the tissue or into the region of interest, and we expect some reflections to come back. So all these transducers or antenna will wait for these reflections to come back, and the wait time actually is dependent on how much depth you want to scan. And once you have the reflections back, which will be recorded in each of these antennas or transducer arrays as against time, so each transducer or the antenna will have some signal against the time index. And then what we do is this beautiful process of beamforming, where we will map that time to space, and we have a 2D or 3D image or volume in front of us. So that's the way we used to do. And we did discuss about the most fundamental of beamforming, which is the delay and sum beamforming, and you will get more exposure to that while doing the assignment 2. And then we are actually also, in fact, we have also discussed about some advanced beamforming algorithms such as delay, multiply and sum, which is kind of a non-linear algorithm because you are doing cross multiplication between one transducer or one antenna and other antennas, right? So that's something which is interesting. And then on moving away from that sort of thing was minimum variance, where we try to minimize the variance of the focused data. So one transducer sort of thing is what you call the reflection is maximized while keeping others minimized. In that way we can minimize the variance of or you can say you can improve the directivity of reflection, right? Because if you think that one sensor reflection is amplified, it essentially shows you that that particular reflection from that pixel is directed towards one transducer, right? So that's the meaning of it. Okay, so that's all about reflection imaging, and our course will not be complete if we don't talk about the transmission imaging, or in literature it is more commonly known as tomography. Okay, so let's go into details without any further delay to understand what is happening there. Okay, so what is tomography? So tomography is actually nothing but shadow imaging. Okay, so example is X-rays. So what exactly is that? When I say shadow imaging, what it means? So let's say I have a source here. Okay, so this is the source. It sort of emits waveforms in the space, and let's say here is I'm standing here. Okay, so let me do something like this. I'm doing chest scanning. Okay, so you have this one here. Right, so you have your chest here, the lungs here. Let's say you are going to have the scanning, and then on the other side you will have a detector. Okay, so this is again an arrangement of sensors, array of sensors here. This is what you have. It can be actually 2D array, need not be actually just like our camera where you have a 2D array of sensors. So you'll have that. So these reflections will come and fall into each of these things, right? But what is this? The importance is actually these are transmitted, right? It's not like the reflected one, but it is actually the transmitted one. So these are the reflected ones we were thinking about so far. Now we have to think beyond that. It is something like whatever is passed through, that will actually come and fall on these detectors, and that is what we are imaging for. So it is something like shadow, right? Because if you think from a light perspective, if I put a torch here and illuminate a person, I can get something at the other side which is nothing but a shadow, but that actually shows of course the shape at least of the person, right? So it's possible. So that is the concept. So tomography is nothing but shadow imaging, and in fact if you go back to the history of tomography, if you search in literature, you will find that the literal meaning, if I remember correctly, it's coming from Greek or Latin. The literal meaning of is actually something like cut. So tomo means cut, and graphy means write. Okay, so it means cut open. So that's what exactly it's saying. You are trying to open up whatever hidden body or hidden object and try to see what is inside it. And this is actually done non-inversively in the case of X-rays, or in the case of gamma rays, for example, all these where shadow imaging is preferred. And that's why we call it as tomography, or if literally you just don't get confused, it is nothing but transmission imaging. Okay, so Then basically, as you know, X-rays is just like one source and the person is standing, and on the other side you have a detector which will capture these shadows. But computed tomography, or some people call computated or computer aided tomography, which is CT, which is very popular for us, is the approach of rotating the object or rotating the sensor array. So either if rotate is, object is something which is very small and you can rotate the object, but for human we can't rotate the human, right? So what we need to do is we need to rotate this source detector arrangement, okay, and then you capture the shadow images at all these positions, and then finally you stitch them together, you get a 3D picture, or you get a different view altogether. Okay, so that is what typically does. So you can think of CT as something like multiple X-rays taken at different angles. So I have a pictorial representation which is actually shown here. So you can see here the source is here, the detector is here, and then you are rotating the source and detector. Each time it creates some images, and then you stack them together. So each one is a different view, right? Because you are passing through different region in the body. So you'll get sort of a 3D volume or 3D picture of your human body in that sense. It is like slice, right? And then of course you can have a motion this way also, so then you get a full 3D picture. That's what CT does. So when you next time when you hear 8 slice CT or 32 slice CT or 128 slice CT, it just means that you have these many slices in the image. So richer the number, better the resolution, or better the content, right? So that's the meaning of it. Now interesting concept. I think everything remains same. So you have the source, then you have the detector, and then the X-rays are passed through. So the X-rays will be passed through the body, it will get attenuated in the body, the remaining will fall on the detector. So it's kind of a shadow map that you're going to get, and then you reconstruct image out of that. So we will discuss about that process in detail in the subsequent slides. Our focus will be more on the image reconstruction side, because the course itself is, the major aim is that, right? So one major image reconstruction algorithm, beamforming, we studied in a lot of detail. Now another image reconstruction algorithm will be discussed in these lectures. Okay, so let's discuss more. Now just to understand what is happening, so we could think of the exit beam intensity. So exit beam intensity is nothing but after exiting from the tissue. So something is absorbed, remaining will continue travel, and it falls on the detector. So that is actually, so whatever is falling on the detector, intensity can be expressed. So this is very, very generic expression. So ID is the detected intensity on the detector. It is proportional definitely to the original intensity, the source intensity, whatever you are transmitting from the source. So I0 is the source intensity that you are transmitting. But then we know that it travels a path, it forms a wave, it travels a path, it has so many obstacles in front of it. Each obstacle will absorb some portion of it. So that is given by mu. Okay, so mu is the linear attenuation coefficient, which is attenuation is happening because of this absorption, and mu is a factor of the position, right? Because if you think this way, so let's say I have the source here and the object here, and then the detector here. So there are positions, right? This is first position, this, let's say, the sixth position. So the ray will actually be passing and then falling on this, right? And then this guy will also pass through here and then through here. So this is the S direction. So the attenuation is a factor, right? Because it depends on the path. And then of course it is also a factor of the travel path, right? So this this is like a integral over this path, the entire path, right? So ID is the reflected signal which is observed here. It is a factor of the original intensity and along its path and its position, right? So basically it's something like what you get at each detector is the summed value over the entire propagation path. We don't know from exactly where it is coming from, whether it is coming from this position or this position or this position, we don't know, right? We only get that sum value. The entire propagation is considered, and whatever is the resultant summation that we have, that is what we observe at the detector. Okay, so that's what this ID. So this formula is very beautiful. So it just to reiterate it again. So detected intensity is measured in transmitted intensity. In fact, detected intensity is a measured intensity. So the measured or the detected intensity is the transmitted intensities, which is actually scaled by some attenuation factor, and that attenuation factor depends upon the path, the entire path. That is why this line integral is important. In this case, we can confidently call it as line integral because it is along a straight line, right? So that's the thing. And then S is the position of the detector, and E is some effective energy, that is like what is the property of the material. Okay, so something like that you can. So this is something which is very common, but a more popular equation is the Beer-Lambert law. I think most of you might have studied this in physics classes. Even if you don't even if you don't remember, that's just not really significant to remember it, but it's a very beautiful expression. So there is slightly similar, there's no difference, but we are representing the attenuation as an exponential decay. So this is something like, let me put it this way, ID, and D, in fact we are measuring at phi, and S. Phi is nothing but the angle that it makes, and S is nothing but the detector position. Okay, so that's the meaning of it. So this is equal to I0 e raised to minus, you have a line integral again, so let me put it as line integral, and that is for a particular angle and a particular detector, because that line depends upon the detector and the angle, right? So that's the meaning of it. Then of course mu xy ds. Okay, so this mu xy is something like the material has a attenuation value in the xy coordinate, right? But you are only interested in the attenuation coordinates along that line which is actually forming. You sum that up along that line, and then exponential of that will be actually the decay that you are getting, and then that particular thing scaled by your original intensity will be a detected intensity. Now this is something which is very, very interesting, and I just want to add one more step here. If I take the I0 to here, because we'll see why I'm saying this is important. Okay, you just believe me for now and just follow what I'm doing. So let me actually put this side. So let's say I phi s by I0 is equal to e raised to minus this line integral L phi comma s mu of x comma y ds. Now if I take natural logarithm on both sides, this is equivalent to, so let's say ln, let me call it as id for easy representation, I0, this is equal to negative, okay, let me put this negative also here, so let's say negative natural logarithm of this ratio is equal to L of phi comma s mu of x comma y ds. This is something which is very interesting, because in this way we will be able to actually get the attenuation value from the observed intensity, and that is very significant for us because that is a property of the material that we are trying to image. So this expression, please remember it. We will come back to this particular expression, the negative logarithm of the ratio. We will come back to that at a later point of time when we talk about the image reconstruction. Now let me just summarize this. So effectively what is happening is the source will emit the radiation. That radiation will penetrate through our body. It will have some attenuation along its path that gets accumulated, and then it falls on the detector, and we only measure that accumulated attenuation value, right? And if we know the starting intensity, so I can easily get the ratio, and then I can be able to get that attenuation value from the measured observation, or the measured or the detected value. I will be able to get the attenuation potentially at each depth. So how do you get back to that depth? How do you reconstruct that image from these observations ID is what the fun is all about, right? Okay, so let's move on. So I will start with X-ray imaging because tomography is very synchronous with X-ray imaging or CT. So we will try to have some details of X-ray imaging, just like in the beamforming I was emphasizing more on the ultrasound because it is so powerfully used in ultrasound, and that's the reason why we stressed there. Now coming to X-ray imaging, what is it? So we already know, I think all of us, I'm very sure, might have done at least X-ray once in our lifetime. Most of the time X-ray of the lung, right? So you might have done a medical checkup in that sense. So X-ray is also popularly known as Roentgen radiation, proudly named after the discovery of X-rays by Wilhelm Roentgen. So if you are not aware of the history, it was discovered accidentally, and that's why the name, it was called X-rays. It's like some ambiguous unknown rays, so that's why X factor comes, right? X-rays is name given because of that accidental discovery. The history is very interesting. Please go through that and see more details. Okay, basically what is actually happening is the X-rays are sort of photonic energy, and then they pass through the body, and different materials will attenuate these X-rays differently, and that is very important because that is how the contrast is created in the final image. Because if everything absorbs equally, then you won't see anything in the image, right? There will not be any contrast at all. There will contrast, when I say, is like intensity difference, right? If everything absorbs same, then the shadow will look like one single entity, right? Similar to the shadow, if you put a torch and put a torch on us, we will see the shadow at the back. Then we won't be able to see our structure, right? We only see that border, right? We only see the shadow. Basically, it's a border for us because everything is attenuating same. It's like light is completely blocked through the body, right? So if light penetrates through the body and then different things will attenuate differently, you would have seen that on the back side the shadow would have more structures of our body, maybe the skeleton and all those things, right? That doesn't happen to light, but it happens to X-rays because they gets attenuated by different materials differently. And this is in fact of course our great man Röntgen, and this is the X-ray of the hand of his wife. Okay, so he experimented, he first, when we tried the X-ray, he tried it on the hands of his wife, and you can see the bonds very clearly, and you see this is the ring that she wore on his hand, and that's a metal which will attenuate it much higher compared to bone. And even soft tissue, you can see it is actually attenuating it lower. So that is the beauty, right? And that's why X-rays are so popular in finding out bone fracture, tears and all, because it clearly highlights the bony structure compared to the tissue structure, because the tissue attenuation is not that great, so it just passes, so you won't see really any shadow. So you will see more of a shadow on the bony sort of nature. So if you see the electromagnetic spectrum, this is the concept. So you have the visible light here, you have the ultraviolet light here. So this is increasing wavelength or decreasing frequency, you could say. This is smaller wavelength, so this is the frequency increase because it's opposite of it. So you can see that gamma rays will have the smallest wavelength, and of course that is used very what you call very sub femtometer level resolution you could get. And then we do have soft X-rays and hard X-rays. So the difference why it is soft and hard, it's like hard X-rays won't bend, it goes in a straight line, whereas soft X-rays more like sound, which can actually diffract and go around objects, so they are not really used in imaging. Okay, you in fact ultraviolet imaging also people do sometimes, but very rarely, because towards this the bending will be more. Okay, now coming back to hard X-rays, then again the photon energy level you could actually see a difference here, and the 10 kilovolt kilo electron volt is actually used for crystallography and all. And then as we go, so many applications. Mammography is slightly lower energy compared to medical CT, and compared to airport security, which is used for scanning explosives and all, is extremely high in terms of electron volt. So higher the electron volt, it's more ionizing, it's harmful for us. So if you accidentally get into something like this, you're gone actually. So some sort of ionization will happen in your body. So this is the important factor which I was talking about. So different materials, in fact denser materials attenuate the X-rays more. So air attenuation will be lower than tissue, which will be lower than bone, which will be lower than metal, which is quite evident from here. So the higher the attenuation, more will be the shadow, right? So that's the concept. Okay, so I hope it's pretty clear and interesting for you. So the concept is, you have a source, that source will generate the X-rays or whatever rays, it will pass through the body, different materials will attenuate it different, and the remaining will come and fall on the detector, and that is what we use it for imaging. Major important thing that you should remember is, each detector, you have an array of detectors, but each detector will only capture the overall, the summed path, right? It's not like each location in the space I will get, it's not like that. You get the summed reaction, right? Again, I just want to highlight that. So let's say the object is here and the detector array is here. Let's say I'm considering this detector, let's say this is a straight line path, the hard X-ray path. So you get the total sum value, the total summation throughout this value at this point. You won't get like in the ultrasound case where we got across the time. That's not what we get here. Here we get is the summed value, the entire depth value summed over is what we get. And now how to reconstruct that image that is in between us, that is the beauty, right? That's the image reconstruction process that we are going to talk about in the subsequent slides. So let's move on. and let's move on to now more of signal processing and more of what we as engineers are interested in. And the basic idea of all these methodologies is projections, right? So I think you already got what I'm saying. So when you say I'm passing X-ray and then passing it through the body, and then what we get is sort of summation of the entire line, right? Entire line path, line integral. That means it's a projection, right? The projection of that line onto the detector is what we get. So maybe I'll explain it with the help of photos, which we are very comfortable with. So it's very common that you have a scene in front of us, and when we take the photos at different angles, we capture it differently. So you consider this particular thing over here. So if I'm taking the picture of this scene where I have two trees from this view, let's call it south view. Okay, so then what I see in the image will be like this tree and this tree are overlapped, right? So it may, if they are of same height, it may appear like only one tree exists in the scene, but that's not the case, right? So you have a viewpoint limitation here. But if I go around, so if I move around, okay, so I move from this position and then go to this position, so here the viewpoint is something like this, right? So you are actually seeing something like this. So the projection, so you are actually projecting the 3D scene in front of it to a 2D plane, right? So that's what you do. So a photo is a projection of an object, a 3D object onto a 2D plane, right? That's what a photo is all about. And then if you go move around and go to this part, and then if you take the projection like this, then obviously you will see the two trees, right? So that's the important thing that I was talking about, and that is a major difference between X-ray and CT, because X-ray will only have one viewpoint, one slice, whereas 3D you are moving around the object and then taking different slices, and then you can stitch them together and even create the 3D scene back, right? So that's what the essence of the CT is all about, and this is very important concept. Okay, so whenever we say transmission imaging, and whenever we say there is this detectors which are accumulating the information over time, something like a line integral that we are talking about, it is nothing but the forward projection of the scene, right? Forward projection of the object. Okay, so please remember that. Now coming back to our X-ray case, so let's actually consider a scene. Don't go by all these complex pictures, it's very simple. Let me explain it here. Okay, so this is an object which is actually sort of a circle in shape. And now let's actually see projection P of S. Okay, so S is basically this width. Okay, so this is the S thing. So S will go from minus R to plus R in this case. Okay, and then we will have another factor which is the angle of view, right? So here it's actually, let's say this is 0 angle, this is 90 degree opposite to that, right? In fact, according to the what you call rules that we follow, this is 0 degree and this is 90 degree. Okay, so let's ignore that. Okay, now what is this? This is actually, you are trying to view this guy from something like this parallel projection. So you have, let's say, how parallel rays. Okay, so remember here in the typical X-ray or typical CT, this will be more like a conical beam, like I was talking about. Like you have a small X-ray source which will emit beams like this, right? So it will be like a conical beam. But for simplicity of explanation, we consider something like parallel projection or parallel beam, and this could be easily extended to conical or any particular beam shape by just what you call trigonometry. We won't discuss those details because those are for advanced stuff, but let's assume for simplicity it's parallel projection, something like this. So you have a source, okay, which sort of emits waveform like this, and it falls on the detector which is here. And if you plot this, what you see over here is this will get integrated, so we'll get a small intensity here, and then there is a lot of material difference here, so that will actually increase and increase, and there is a point where it is maximum, which is something like the entire range that is covered. So that will have maximum attenuation, and then it comes back to 0 at this point because there is no attenuation here. So that is the meaning of it. Now there is a beauty about this particular shape, because if I take projection from that angle, or let's say I'm going to take projection from this angle or any angle rather, the shape remains same. The shape will not change in this case. Okay, so that's the important, because the object is circular, So circular is like in whichever angle you look, it looks circle. So if that is the case, then the projection will also remain same even if I take things from different angles. So that actually shows or tells you that you don't need to really take all the 360 degree or all the 180 degree to get a clear picture of your object. You don't need that, right? Because that's a homogeneity around it. Now consider something which is slightly different. So here I have two circles, one is bigger and one is smaller. So here if I take the projections from different angles, it won't be the same. For example, if I take projection from this direction, something like this, what you will see is like this path, the center path will get attenuated more because it has to pass through two different regions, and that's why you see a slightly different shape in the center, and then the other regions are remaining same. So that's the scenario. And then if I take the projection from this way, then you clearly see the two different shapes isolated from each other, right? So that's the thing. So now I think let me put all things together. So what we generally do in the case of transmission imaging like CT, for example, is you do different angles. So two factors there. Phi is this angle, so you view this way or you view this way. I think this entire thing will cover sort of 90 degrees and then come back to here, that will become 180 degrees, and the remaining is sort of redundant, right? You don't need to cover 360 degree because this viewpoint would have covered from the other direction also most of the time, right? Because it doesn't matter. Okay, so that is one factor phi, which is actually the angle or the angle which the detector makes with the source or vice versa. And then of course the resolution, so that now how many detectors that you have, those many locations that you're going to get the data from, that is the S value, right? So that's the thing. So you can actually nicely put this way in this particular thing. So we always call P stands for projection. So whatever we have in X-ray CT, so X-ray will have only basically one angle phi. So phi is fixed, it is more of P of S, right, in the case of X-ray. But in this case of CT, you change the phi also because the viewpoints is also changed. You have both P of S and phi. So that's the thing. And from this, so this is the observation for us. We need to reconstruct the original image back, right? So that's the concept. Or let me make it very simple for you. So what you only have is these projections, and from these projections you need to reconstruct this image out. So that is the entire concept of this reconstruction in tomography. And since the forward measurement is known as projection, forward projection, the reverse reconstruction is typically known in literature as backward projection. Okay, so that's makes sense, right? Because what you have is forward projection measurements, and what we need to get is the image back, which is actually back projection. Okay, backward projection. So let's actually go into the details. Slightly more technical details before we really dig deeper about it. So what are some important aspects? Okay, so let's say the angle dependency, you already saw it, and let me make it slightly more interesting in this way. Let's say I have a point source here, and I have a detector here, and of course this is the S dimension, and then the angle phi, which is actually the angle which the detector makes with the horizontal, phi, which is equivalent here. And we know what is S dash. This S dash will be nothing but R sin phi, right? So that's very important. So the location S of the spike on the 1D detector is S equal to R sin phi, and you have a sin factor here. Okay, and then that essentially means that the projection P of S phi, right? Phi is the factor and S is this particular distance that you are going to measure, and it is in fact a factor of R. So this P of S phi, as I said, is actually a combination of sine and cosine functions, right? Because why I say sine and cosine, the difference is only 90 degree phase shift, and that is going to happen because when phi becomes sort of 90 degree change, it becomes sine, I mean cosine, right? So it's basically a sum of sines and cosines, a group of sines and cosines, and that is why some people call the projection, the data that we get from a CT or data that we get from X-ray, as sinograms. Okay, it's basically a variation of sine, right? So that's the meaning of it. So basically for a given angle phi, if I plot P of S, it looks like a sine shape or cosine shape. Okay, Okay, so that's why it's people call this projection, the forward projection, the recordings that we get from the sensor, as sinograms. You might hear about this many a times if you are going to study in deep about CT, which we are not going to do, of course, but I thought I will introduce these jargons to you so that next time when you hear this, you don't get sort of diverted from it a lot. Okay, so it's very important to understand this. Now this is what I mean. Okay, so this is the object in space, and this is the parallel beams which goes to the detector, and this is what you observe at the detector, right? So this is for a given angle phi, which is actually measured like this. So this is the phi, that is the angle that I make, and then with that phi I have a P of S which is against S. This is what my detector picks up. Then you change the phi, you have another P of S phi, right? And then you keep on doing this, and if I plot, basically this is actually for a P of S for a given phi, right? And if I keep on building up all these P of S phi, and if I stitch them like phi in this space and S in this space, so basically you end up in getting an image which I will show you in subsequent slides. If I take one slice of that, let's say one particular phi, I plot the S, or rather the other way, if I keep the S fixed and I plot the phi, I get sort of a sinogram factor. Okay, so that's what exactly they mean by sinogram. Okay, I hope the concept is very clear. So you keep on changing the phi, you will get P of S for each phi, and then you stitch them together and form an image. That's what known as sinogram. Now some examples. Okay, so I will at the end tell you how to create all these, so don't get worried about how these graphs come into picture, but let's intuitively think what is happening. Okay, so let's say this is the image, this is the space. Okay, so I have a very bright object in front of me, and remaining everything is dark. So you can think of this way, like the entire region attenuates except at the center. So that's how you get this image, right? Because there's no attenuation at the center, that's why you see a bright spot at the center. Others are all attenuated, nothing passed through. Okay, so it's something like impulse response, you could say. Now how to create the sinogram here? So first step is of course 0 degree. So let's say this is 0 degree for you. Okay, so this is the projection that you make. So you transmit, and then basically what you see is everything will be dark. This single spot at the end center will have a bright region. So I will get something like, if I plot it, it will be something like center there will be a bright region, remaining everything will be 0. This is what I'm going to put at first line, first column. Okay, so this is 0 degree here, and then next will be 1 degree, so that means slight tilt like this, and then observe it. But again you can see that this guy is at the center, so it will always remain at the center. You will always get a peak at the center. So I keep on stitching it all the way up to 180 degrees. That means 180 degree, this is 90 degree in between. Even for 90 degree there is something bright at the center, remaining all is black, and then finally you will end up in getting this way, which is 180 degrees. After that you don't need to do, because it is same, right? Whatever is exactly same as this. So what you observed is that irrespective of the angle, the bright spot at the center remains. So that's why if I stitch all of them together, so 0 degree P of S I put, 1 degree P of S I put, 2 degree P of S I put, 180 degree P of S I put, and then I create an image which is sinogram. It looks like a straight line bright spot at the center. The reason is this bright spot remains there even if I view it from different angles. So that's how I get this plot. Okay, now let me slightly make it more interesting. We do have, instead of a spot here, I have a square here, but it is slightly offset, it is not at the center. Okay, now when you view this one, you can again see that the center will look bright. That's why if I plot one line of it, that is your 0 degree. So this is degree, and this is the space S distribution. So this is your 0 degree. You see that the center is bright. That's correct. And there is a slight offset, right? Because this distance is actually lower than this distance. So you can see that this distance is more compared to this distance. So that's the. Now let me actually rotate it to the other direction. So this is the 90 degrees, which will come somewhere in the center. So this lies. Okay, so this is your 90 degrees, and now you see again there's a bright spot because you see that, but then again this region is actually more compared to this region. That's why you're rotating, right? You're rotating here, so this region will become lower. this will be lower compared to this, and then keep on rotating, you will end up here, and then you see this will get into here and this will get into here, right? So that's the exchange that is happening. So very interesting. Now let me make it more complicated. I have 3 bright spots like this, and now let me, for your ease of explanation, let me call this is 1, this is 2, and this is 3. And for you to make it more easily understandable, let's start from here. So this is your 0 degree, that's your first slice that you make. So the 1 is coming here, so this is your 1. The 2 will be always at center, so there is no question, this is 2, and then this is the third guy. Okay, so let's see whether we are able to recollect. So when I view from here, 1 will be different, will be at a separate spot, but 2 and 3 will not be separated because I'm viewing like this, right? They fall on a line, so the intensity will be like adding up together. So you see a bright spot over here, right? And then as I move to these angles slightly greater than 0, let's say 7 degrees, then what I see is actually I start to see them separately, right? So I will see this 1, 2, because my viewpoint is like this. So I'll see these 1, 2, 3 bright spots. That's why you start to see the 3 ones separately here in this region. And then let's say this is the 90 degree. So 90 degree is something like you're viewing something like this, right? Okay, so when you view like this, what is going to happen is 1 and 2 will get overlapped, 3 will be separate. That's why this spot, so 1 and 2, they are overlapping here, but the 3 is actually distinct. So this line will actually view all of them together. Now when I come back to this point, the 2 and 3 again starts to overlap, so that's why you again see over here. So this is 180 degrees, which is exactly the viewpoint here. So you see that 2 and 3 overlaps, but 1 again separates out, so you can see it over here. So this is the way we actually sort of get the projections, and this is typically known as sinograms. And what we have is actually these measurements on the detectors, and now what we need to do is reconstruct from these measurements these scenes back. So that's our objective. Okay, so let me actually tell you the problem and stop this particular lecture, and we will come back with the details in the next lecture. So this is our objective. So this is a very, very typical phantom. Okay, so very common phantom in CT simulation studies and all. They call it a Ship-Logan phantom. So if you are interested in, you can actually see more about it. So it is, let just for this somebody is interested, this is very popularly known as Ship-Logan phantom. Okay, so this is a standard phantom which is used in, phantom is something like a simulation, okay, which is used in CT reconstruction studies and all. So you can see a lot of structures here. So there is 2 structure and then another structure here, some small structures here is what you have. And when we take projections of this from this to this to this, okay, so let's say using X-ray you get the sinogram. So here this is 0 degree, this slice, sorry for that, it's straight line, this is 0 degrees, sender will be 90 degrees. Okay, so this will be 90 degrees, and then this guy, the final one, will be 180 degrees. Okay, so in this direction. So this is this one, this is this observation, and then of course this is this observation. So that's what we have. Okay, so we have no information about this. All we have from the detector is something like this. Now from this we need to actually go back to the original image. So this is the reconstruction process that is of very importance to us. So we'll discuss about that in slightly more details in the next lecture. And just to make a technical jargon to it, so this tomography in technical terms is of course projection, and to give it more meaningful we call it as forward projection, and then this reconstruction process is backward projection or back projection. Okay, so on back projection is of significance, and that's what we will discuss in the next class. Thank you.